The Bruins just had their worst season in years. Brad Marchand's off to the second round with the Florida Panthers. Ticket prices are going up, so it's no wonder fans are getting fed up.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke B. Today is Thursday, May 1st. How is it May already? I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. On today's episode, we are going to discuss the results of a recent fan survey conducted by the Athletics' Fluto Shinzawa and take a look at all of the sticking points for fans right now. Faith is not high in management. People are upset about the ticket prices and, of course, still irked by the Brad Marchand trade as he moves on with the Florida Panthers to the second round of the playoffs. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years. Was a full-time hockey news writer for The Score. And I've been hosting this podcast since 2019. So the Athletics' Fluto Shinzawa had a fan survey up on the Athletics website app earlier this week. I participated in it, and yesterday, I guess, he released the results, and I thought it would be interesting just to go through them and tell you how I voted as well. Now, we'll begin with Brad Marchand and the Florida Panthers. The Bruins made some sweeping changes prior to the trade deadline, of course, trading the likes of Brandon Carlo, Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau, Max Jones. The one that stood out most to people of the trades made before the deadline, which player moved was most surprising. And 58.7% of the fans, 743 responses, voted for Brad Marchand. And that was my vote as well. Fluto wrote, Marchand did not want to be traded. The Bruins did not want to move their captain, but when they could not agree on an extension, management targeted futures as a preferred alternative to letting Marchand walk and traded who they believed would be a lifelong Bruin. The return was underwhelming. A conditional 2027 second rounder. It's going to be 2 years at least until we see any dividends from this trade. And then who knows how long after that once this selection is made and the player is developed. Unless, of course, they end up flipping the pick because it is on track right now to become a first rounder. The Panthers beat the Tampa Bay Lightning last night in 5 games. And if they win another round, either against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who look very beatable, or Matthew Tkachuk's brother Brady and the Ottawa Senators, if they make the second round and if Marchand appears in half of their postseason games, it will become a first rounder in 2027 or 2028. Brad Marchand played in all 5 games so far. He had a spectacular performance in Game 5 and has been one of their better forwards despite playing on a third-line role. So he's played 5 games so far. Let's say the next series goes 7 games. He'll have to play just one more in order for that stipulation to be met. And also, they need to win that round. The way the Panthers are playing and the way Toronto can't close out a series to save their lives, I wouldn't be surprised if indeed the Florida Panthers are off to the next round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, thereby meeting the conditions for this pick. But at the same time, incredibly surprising still that Marshon was traded. Personally, I find it very difficult to root for the Florida Panthers. I did not like trading Marshon to begin with. Very much so hated that he went to the Florida Panthers of all teams. I find it very difficult to root for that team. And if Ottawa somehow squeaks by Toronto and completes the reverse sweep, I will be rooting for them in my heart, but in my head, I know that it's better for the Bruins if the Panthers are to move on to the second round so that they can get that pick. Now, from that trading of Brad Marchand, one of the fallouts, of course, is who will be the next captain. And this was another question in Fluto's athletic survey. The question was, should the Bruins have a captain in 2025-26? 82% voted yes. I thought so as well. Having a captain is important. When Zdeno Chara left in 2020, they wasted no time giving the C to Patrice Bergeron. When he retired in 2023, they immediately gave it to Brad Marchand, and fans want to see the next in line ascend. Who should the next captain be? There were two options offered, David Pastrnak or Charlie McAvoy. 71.2% responded David Pastrnak, and that was my vote as well. David Pastrnak was the lone alternate captain after the Bruins made their deadline moves. Wasn't easy on March 26th after Boston's seventh straight loss. Pastrnak called the slide and the deadline sell-off the hardest thing he'd gone through in his career, but he held his head high and kept his spirits up to see out the season. His upbeat personality and superstar presence make him an easy follow. Now, Pastrnak would be my choice. He really stepped up with McAvoy injured following the Four Nations faceoff. And of course, his play did a lot of the leading as well. The Bruins were out, written off, no chance of making the playoffs, and he played some of the strongest hockey of his career. Like that stretch he had March into April was unbelievable. I thought he would get some love as a Ted Lindsay finalist, which was an award given to the most outstanding player in the NHL as voted on by fellow players. Everydayers will remember I discussed this recently that you likely wouldn't get any Hart Trophy love because of the fact the Bruins missed the playoffs. But when it comes to most outstanding as voted by the players, I thought he could get a shot at being a finalist. He was not. I'd be interested to see if he made at least the top five. Charlie McAvoy even said he was, in his mind, the best player in the NHL down the stretch. But unfortunately did not get that love. But he did get some love from Bruins fans in terms of who should be the next captain. That will be a coaching decision. And there are questions in the survey about who should be the next coach. Faith in Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, as well as the issue of raising ticket prices. And we will touch on these points here as the podcast continues. Did you know the Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV, along with 4K streaming with your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required, and it's available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Thanks so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And today we are breaking down the recent athletic fan survey, which was conducted by Fluto Shinzawa. And we've already discussed how Bruins fans were extremely disappointed in the Brad Marchand trade. Still kind of working out in the fact that they might get a first-round pick out of it. Still an underwhelming return for your captain, especially when you compare it to what they got for Brandon Carlo or Charlie Coyle. And also, I mean, who wants to root for the Florida Panthers? Certainly not me. We also discussed who will be the next captain, and likely David Pastrnak. That will be a coaching decision, usually. And there were some options given as to which of these coaches would you prefer to be the Bruins' next head coach. The options were David Carl of the University of Denver, Jay Pandolfo from BU, Joel Quenneville, who is kind of a disgraced former head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, multi-Stanley Cup winner, including 2013 against our very own Boston Bruins, but has not secured a job after being disciplined by the NHL following the investigation into the Blackhawks and their 2010 scandal. He would not be my pick by any stretch of the imagination. There was also Ryan Muganel, head coach of the Providence Bruins, Joe Sacco, interim head coach, and Jay Leach, who is an assistant. And that was my pick, actually. I think Jay Leach would be a great pick. Now, this survey was posted before Mike Sullivan became available, so he might be now the fan favorite. Of course, another multi-Stanley Cup champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He is Charlie McAvoy's father-in-law, so that may cloud things. But the winner in this vote was Carl. Hotshot University of Denver coach. Makes sense as a top target. He has won 2 NCAA championships, led Team USA to consecutive gold medals at the World Juniors, and served as Jim Montgomery's assistant at Denver. He's never coached in the NHL, but his history says he is positioned for success. I think we discussed this earlier on the podcast when looking at some head coaching candidates. Now, the fact that he was Montgomery's assistant may work against the Bruins, seeing as how that relationship ended. And all reports are that Carl is content to stay at Denver unless he's kind of blown away by an offer or sees a position where he can jump in and succeed right away, which may or may not be the Boston Bruins. Muganel doing good work with Providence, but still a little green for me. Pandolfo, I think, would be a great choice. He has ties to the Bruins, obviously, as do Leach and Sacco. So the question is still whether they want to go outside the organization to bring in fresh eyes, or they want to bring someone in who is more closely tied to the organization and who they are familiar with. This decision, of course, will be made by Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, who are team president, general manager, respectively. And one of the big questions on the survey was, are Cam Neely and Don Sweeney the right executives to oversee the turnaround? And 68% of respondents said no. Full disclosure, I'm pretty sure I voted yes, because I do believe that their regular season track record is strong enough to warrant at least one more kick at things. If they had won in 2019 or 2023, obviously the goodwill would be shifted and they'd be given more of a leash. 2019, you get to a game 7 in the Stanley Cup final, you play that game 100 times, they probably win more often than not. 2023, Sweeney went above and beyond to make that team as strong as possible, and the players just were not able to get it done. Having said that, they've been around for quite a while, and again, maybe there needs to be some fresh eyes coming in to really assess where this organization is at and how they can succeed moving forward. Fluto writes, the Neely-Sweeney partnership has endured for parts of 5 decades, dating back to when they wore number 8 and 32 on the ice, respectively. Once Sweeney replaced Chiarelli in 2015, he oversaw a turnaround that got the Bruins back into the playoffs in 2017. 2 years later, the Bruins fell 1 win short of the Cup. In 2023, Neely and Sweeney were at the forefront of a 65-win club. Their accomplishments are numerous, but the Bruins are rebuilding for the future now, and not everybody believes Neely and Sweeney can execute another revival. Again, if they had a cup on their resumes, the belief, I believe, would be higher. I do think fans are harder on them than they necessarily should be, based on the fact that, yeah, they have like the top record in the regular season over the past decade and have had some playoff success. You look at Toronto, 1 series win in the shootout era. Brendan Shanahan still standing tall as their team president. Yeah, they've gone through some general managers and coaches, but I do believe, they have a chance to turn things around. But if they're in the same position this time next year, see you later. And that comes back to Don Sweeney, who has a year left on his contract, and fans were asked if he deserves an extension. 75.5% said no. I said no, pending what he's able to do here at the draft, hiring a coach, and in free agency. Fluto wrote, a clear majority see 2025-26 as Sweeney's final season as GM. If that becomes the case, he would have 1 Cup final appearance on his resume. It would then be up to Neely to determine whether assistant GM Evan Gold deserves a promotion or if outside help would be required. Again, it's my take that he doesn't deserve an extension quite yet. If he hits on a head coach, hits on the draft, and also in free agency, and the Bruins are back in the playoffs next season, sure, he warrants a contract extension for sure. Part of that will depend on some players who were disappointing this season rebounding next year, and an overwhelming amount of fans voted for Jeremy Swayman as the player they were most disappointed in this past season. 67.2%. That's who I voted for as well. Elias Lindholm coming in at 26.2%. Swayman set the bar in the 2024 playoffs. Bruins best player against the Maple Leafs and Panthers. When the Bruins traded Linus Ullmark, it cleared the table for Swayman to be the full-time ace. Cashed in too, scoring an 8-year, $66 million contract after missing all of training camp. It would have been one thing to parachute in at the start of the regular season had Swayman played up to his contract. He did not. The Bruins are hopeful it is a 1-year aberration. So, those are some of the responses today. We're also going to touch on where the Bruins need to improve in the offseason, if they should trade their 2025 first-round pick, and also whether Brad Marchand should come back, and what to make of ticket price rises. We'll touch on all this here as the podcast continues. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, going to the movies, going to a game, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Now, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Instead of juggling multiple apps, use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan your long-term goals. All right, let's touch on some more bits from this fan survey. here as the podcast continues. Speaking of Jeremy Swayman, fans were asked, will he be a top 5 goalie next season? 63% said no. He's currently the 4th highest paid goalie, tied with Ilya Sorokin. Likely he will play less next season, given that Sweeney has made it clear he wants more competition between Swayman and Joonas Korpisalo if Korpisalo is still around. He's due to bounce back from an .892 save percentage, but fans do not believe significant improvements are ahead. Going back to Brad Marchand, Fluto asked, do you think Marshon will re-sign with the Bruins? 80% said no. It remains to be seen what kind of interest Marshon will have on July 1st. Rebuilding team might see value in giving Marshon a multi-year contract to set the standard for younger players. Does he join Nick Foligno, Tyler Bertuzzi in Chicago, for example? It worked. It would be harder for a contender to give Marshon the term and salary he might want. But regardless of how the market forms, it's quite unlikely there's a path to a reunion if the difference was so significant at the deadline. Speaking of signings, one of the questions was, how much should Morgan Geekie make per year on his next contract? 61% said $5 million, 19% said $6 million, and 18.6% responded $4 million. Geekie picked a good time to have a breakout season with his 2-year, $4 million contract expiring. Even if a 33-goal output is subject to regression, which it is because of his elevated shooting percentage, Geekie is in a good spot to more than double his previous average annual value, and it should be a good investment for the Bruins, seeing as he had such great success playing alongside David Pastrnak. What position is the most in need of offseason improvement? 67% said center. Elias Lindholm, Pavel Zacha, Casey Middlestat, Mark Kastelik could be the game one centers. Not a scary foursome. There are no high-impact play drivers in this group. Other candidates like Matt Poitras and Fraser Minton are unknowns. The trouble is how difficult and expensive it is to acquire centers. The cost may be why Sweeney is emphasizing help on the wing this offseason. Yeah, they lost Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, James Van Riemsdyk last offseason. Fabian Lysell emerged late, but he was kind of hoped to make a move or make some improvements. He did late in the season. Should start for the Bruins on opening night. But they still need help on the wings and should prioritize that, a.k.a. Mitch Marner, as I talked about the other day. Should the Bruins trade their 2025 first-round pick? Yesterday I discussed how important it was to hit on that. 93% said no. If the Bruins land the number 5 pick, it could gain plenty of interest on the trade market. The Bruins could trade down and receive multiple selections later in the first round. But given how few high-end prospects they have in their pool, standing pat and making the pick is the smartest move. I agree. Do not trade that pick at all. A couple more questions here. Should the Bruins roll back their 4% ticket increase for 2025-26? 81.4% said yes, and justifiably so. Prices everywhere are rising. Jacobs noted in the team's end-of-the-year press conference, that's team president Charlie Jacobs, but a 4% increase following a 33-win season is not pleasing season ticket holders. Customers expect performance and entertainment for their dollars. And I 100% agree. Like in today's economy, rising ticket prices for a team with diminishing point totals, and let's be honest, this season, quite low entertainment value, just does not make sense. And I mean, you all know that I have so many Bruins hats and toques. I'm just not investing in anything Bruins related right now because of the economy and because of the fact that, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing for me right now to be wearing Bruins gear with the Leafs Senators playing in the first round up here in Ontario. The final question, will the Bruins make the playoffs in 2025-26? I voted yes, but 55.8% of you said no. Neely, Sweeney, Jacobs all believe the Bruins will be back in the postseason next year. They've pointed to the core of stars, a return to health, and an expanse of mechanisms to populate the roster as reasons for their optimism. All of this has not produced full-on acceptance. The Bruins have multiple deficiencies to address this offseason, and perhaps too many to convince fans to make TD Garden plans for next spring. And it's not just in their own power either, right? You had the Senators and Canadiens who surprised this season by making the playoffs. Montreal bounced by Washington in 5 games last night, but still a very big season for them, and they'll just continue to grow and get better with their young core. You have the Red Wings who are going to be trying to make a jump into the playoffs. Columbus was close this year. The Rangers will be looking to improve. Regardless of what the Bruins are able to accomplish at the draft, in free agency, who they hire as coach, there's going to be a lot of teams in the mix next season. I don't see too many dropping out from the teams that made this year. Maybe Ottawa, maybe Montreal. Who knows? Yeah, I don't see Carolina or New Jersey or Washington maybe dropping back. New Jersey will just get even better with Jack Hughes coming back. Toronto, Florida, Tampa, all 3 of those teams still very good. So it's going to be a difficult road ahead for the Bruins. They must do all they can to improve here this summer. And fan confidence not really high right now, and I don't blame them. I'm always kind of glass half full when it comes to the Bruins, and it's been easy to do so over the past number of years because of how good they have been. I do believe Sweeney knows his job is on the line. Can't get too cute with things like he's done in the past at the draft per se, or in free agency. Those have been the big weaknesses. If he can pull off a couple trades, like look at what he did at the trade deadline, Marshon aside, and I defy you to argue that any of those trades he didn't really win on. Getting Jacob Lauko and Hust Nudinov for Justin Brazeau, that's a win. Getting Will Zellers and Casey Middlestaff for Charlie Coyle, that's a win. Getting Fraser Minton and a first for Brandon Carlo, that's a win. Even the trade with the Oilers, 2nd-round pick, Frederick Jones, that's a win. A clear win. So he's done good table setting there. They got the job done by finishing top 5 in a draft pick. Hopefully they can get some lottery luck on Monday and get as high as 1st or 2nd, and then go from there. Let me know in the comments what you think of this fan survey. Did you vote? Drop your opinions in the comments. Please do follow along on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube if you have not already. For your next listen, check out NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. NHL Game Night. Thanks so much for listening today. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.